A couple weeks ago, I made a video ranting about The Flash Season 7. The season was only on episode 15 at the time, and since then, we've gotten 3 more episodes, which concluded the Godspeed arc. Now, this arc only started in episode 15, which is already one of the main problems. I mean, it's the size of a crossover event, and even then, it's not the biggest crossover event. Crisis on Infinite Earths had more episodes than this, and this is supposed to be an entire graphic novel dedicated to an entire main villain. I mean, what were they thinking? What was going through their mind when they decided to condense the entire Godspeed arc into such a short amount of episodes? Yeah, sure, COVID definitely affected the season fairly drastically, but really, they just had to move the last 3 episodes of Season 6 into Season 7. Not only did this leave them 15 episodes to work with, but even then, this is the shortest season yet. Why couldn't they just add a couple episodes? But if they kept it at 15, they still had more time to write the season, and they could have dedicated up to 15 episodes to the Godspeed arc, but they could have at least given us 7. The writers decided to give the first 8 episodes to the Force Quest storyline, which was not good in the comics, so there was like no hope for it on the show, but that did leave at least 7 episodes, or at most 7 episodes for the Godspeed arc, which isn't enough, but it's something. It's more than 4, it's more than a crossover event. But then they decided to dedicate 3 of those episodes to filler, which is an arc that the showrunner is calling Interlude 1. There was one episode dedicated to Siska, which was his goodbye, but then he just came back for 2 more episodes. I could have given that a pass for one episode that they could have not dedicated to the Godspeed arc. But like the fact that it came back for the last 2 episodes, like 3 episodes later, it really undercut that goodbye. So there's no reason why his departure couldn't have been a part of the Godspeed arc. But then there were 2 just disgraceful episodes. The Cecile episode, which I just skipped it. The fact that it's not a part of any graphic novel, it's clearly not connected to any main storyline, and it's dedicated to Cecile. I see no reason why I should have to watch that episode. And then there's the Allegra episode, which is the lowest rated episode of the show ever, which I also skipped. And I also skipped through every single time that storyline showed up in subsequent episodes because, like I said in my previous video, I just don't care about the side characters at all. Regardless, this leaves 4 episodes for a villain that people have been requesting really more than any other character since he debuted in 2016, and the show itself has been setting up for 2 years since near the end of Season 5. This really didn't leave Godspeed enough time to develop, especially since August Hart himself, the actual Godspeed, only appeared from episode 16, was only given his memory back at the end of episode 17, and even then was only the actual villain in the finale itself. Godspeed gave us all of his backstory, all of his motivation, and all of his goals through an exposition dump in the finale. Really, introducing the main villain in the last episode was never a good idea. Giving the whole storyline just 4 episodes was never a good idea, and they could have done so much more with this. Not even expanding the storyline to 7 or even 15 episodes, they still could have incorporated August Hart as a character into the Force Quest storyline, maybe introducing near the beginning of the season with a different name, and he's an amnesiac, but throughout the season he becomes close to Team Flash, while also slowly regaining his memories of the future and redeveloping his speedster powers. Godspeed regaining his memory and August Hart being like that innocent person who becomes the evil person that he was in the future would have hit a lot harder than it did in the actual episodes because it didn't really work at all. So I think they could have done that and Godspeed would have worked so much better as a villain, while also being a part of the entire season of just instead of just really being relegated to just 4 episodes, where he only really appears in 2 of them maybe. Regardless, the 4 episodes themselves didn't really make any sense. I mean, the explanation of the Godspeeds fighting each other was that August wants to use the city as like a hostage and force Barry to give him organic speed. But then, like, why did they fight each other? Why was there the Civil War? Having speedsters, an army of speedsters, go around killing people and destroying buildings and destroying things, that would just do so much more damage than have them fight each other. That's like the worst way to threaten a city, by having the speedsters fight each other. None of it really made any sense at all. Not to mention Godspeed himself, his dialogue and his voice. What the hell was that? He sounds and talks really just like a character who is plucked right out of Power Rangers. I mean, he might as well just blurt out like, ha ha ha, I am evil. It's like the most generic sounding villain ever. It's ridiculous.
Infinite velocity will soon be mine. And once my ascension is complete, all will bow before the might of Godspeed! You're too late! Now the future belongs to Godspeed!
Also, his plan to get organic speed, it wasn't really a bad plan. Like, I think that made sense. He used the city as a hostage to get himself the speed, while also forcing August Heart to regain his memories. I think that was kind of cool. But then he gets the organic speed, and Flash summons Thawne for some reason, which in of itself didn't really make any sense. What did he do that Impulse, Jay Garrick, or XS couldn't do, really? But disregarding that, they fight, and it's a Star Wars fight. They just whip out a bunch of lightsabers, and then Godspeed whips out a lightsaber, and then Flash and Thawne whip out a lightsaber, and what? Since when can they do this? Are they Green Lanterns now? Nora had a whip earlier, Bart had shurikens, and now Barry, Thawne, and Hart could just create lightsabers as well. They could just create constructs now? They're Green Lanterns now? Is that what speedsters can do? We've never seen a speedster do this before. We've never seen them do it in the comics either. And why are they fighting with swords? Why aren't they fighting like speedster fights? I will admit it's a little bit cool, but it's like the cheesiest thing I've ever seen on the show ever. And it comes out of nowhere. It makes no sense. It's so stupid. It also felt like I said earlier, why was Team Flash, why was the Flash family not involved with the Godspeed fight? It just felt like they didn't really give us an explanation for why Jay, Nora, and Bart couldn't have helped out with that fight, and why they had to bring in Thawne. And it also, Tom Cavanaugh playing Thawne will always bother me in a context like this. However, the fact that Thawne was there, it led to probably the coolest moment of the episode where Thawne attacks Barry, and Barry makes Thawne look like a little bitch. That was awesome. It just feels so good to see a competent and powerful Flash who got more powerful and much faster compared to how he was in the past, and compared to the Season 1 villain. I think that Thawne, obviously, it makes sense for him to be the overarching villain, but the fact that Barry is the same speed as the villain of the first season, it really shows how he hasn't really gotten any faster, but now in that scene, they prove otherwise, and that was awesome. That is what I want to see. That is how Barry should be. He was like that in episode 2, but episode 2 was entirely dedicated to why he shouldn't be that way, but he definitely should, and it really gives me hope for the next season, where maybe they'll make Barry a little bit more competent than he's been for the last couple seasons, which was one of my main complaints in the previous video. Another one was the awful supporting cast and how uninteresting all of the non-speedsters are, but obviously we got a lot of speedsters in this one. Seeing Jay again was pretty awesome. They really never explain why he's on this Earth, that makes no sense, but still though, watching these episodes and also reading the comics recently, it made me realize how perfectly cast John Wesley Shipp is as Jay Garrick. He might be the best casting on the show. Then there's Nora, who I never disliked as much as it seems like a lot of people did, but that being said, this version of Nora is a little bit more fun than the one we saw in Season 5, so it was cool to see her again, especially with her sibling rivalry with Bart Allen, who finally came to the show. He's a bit different from what I would have expected Bart Allen to be. He's a lot older, he acts slightly differently, and he's the child of Barry and Iris instead of the grandchild. However, I liked him a lot. I liked his costume, I liked his attitude. Jordan Fisher was pretty good in the role, so I liked Bart. I also liked Nora in their debut episode, when the new Nora and Bart was introduced. The thought that maybe they could be the main characters of a sequel show, that thought crossed my mind, which was pretty impressive for The Flash Season 7. So with Flash, XS, Impulse, and Jay, plus Iris and the Speed Force, plus Godspeed and Thawne, we got a shit ton of speedsters in these episodes, which I really enjoyed. However, having speedsters on the show does not make these episodes good. All it does is make it interesting, because the writing and the dialogue and the cinematography and the way everything is made here, it's so bad at this point that if you don't have speedsters on screen, then the show is unwatchable. The speedsters make the show watchable, they make it interesting, because without it, I just skipped through every other storyline that didn't involve the speedsters. The cinematography, the dialogue, the writing, it's just so cheesy. Everything is so amateurish, everything is so unprofessional, it just feels like Power Rangers. Eric Wallace just doesn't know what he's doing. He's clearly not cut out for something like this. he's more cut out for something that requires less effort, something that has no budget whatsoever. The Flash has a budget. They just don't use it. They obviously don't really know how to allocate it. There's no way the Superman and Lois has like so much bigger of a budget because it looks so much better, and there's just no way the budget is that much bigger than the Flash. Their ratings aren't that different. The Flash has a big audience and it makes a lot of money, so where does the budget go? Because this show in this season looks like garbage, it sounds like garbage, it's so unprofessional, so amateurish, the script is so immature, everything is so childish. It just feels like Power Rangers, and Eric Wallace just doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know how to bring out the best of his actors, the cinematographers, the directors, any of it. He doesn't know what he's doing, and they really gotta give the show back to somebody who does. All that being said, I definitely enjoyed these episodes a lot more than the rest of the season. Like I said, the speedsters really make the show interesting. The concept were cool. There were a couple things that weren't speedster related that I did like. Mainly just Diggle, like that whole thing in episode 16, that was kind of cool. Definitely furthered his plot more than any other show he's been on. Even in Superman and Lois, it's not something I say a lot. The Flash did something better than Superman and Lois. Diggle, he was good in that episode. It was cool to see him, and his storyline was interesting. I really want to see more of that. But aside from him, all the Chillblaine stuff in episode 15, I skipped any of the Chester scenes that it's just him and no other characters or no other speedsters. I skipped the Joe Kramer storyline, which really was in the entire season. Skipped all of that, everything to do with Allegra, her episode, but also any of the scenes regarding Allegra, which continue from her episode. Skipped every single one, and they were in every episode. 15, 16, 17, 18, skipped all of it. But just the fact that there were so many storylines that I skipped, which harkens back to my point, which is the supporting cast is awful. It's a big problem for the show, and that is also included within these episodes, not just before the Godspeed arc. Still though, with those storylines being as bad as they were, and with these episodes having storylines that I skipped, they're still better than most of the season. It's just compared to the rest of the show, these episodes are still kind of bad and generally disappointing. That goes for Godspeed also, like compared to the rest of the show, compared to the earlier speedster villains like Thawne in season 1 and Zoom and Savitar. Godspeed is very disappointing, but he's a more interesting villain. He's a better villain, really, than the Speed Force and Mirror Monarch at the very least, and probably also Cicada. So Godspeed isn't really that bad, it's just that he could have been way better. And honestly, just that statement that these episodes were the best episodes of the season, and Godspeed was the best main villain we've had since mid-season 6, yeah, that's kind of a sad statement. It really goes to show how bad the show's been lately, and season 7 was awful, and these last 4 episodes, while a little better than the average quality of season 7, they're pretty bad too. So that is it for this video. Let me know in the comments down below everything you thought about the Godspeed imperative. And if you want to watch the last video and you haven't, and you're somehow all the way to the end of this video, then go watch it. It's in the description down below. It's in the title cards, I think. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below about everything I talked about and everything that I didn't talk about that I forgot to mention maybe. And if you like this video, make sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for watching. I'll see you next time, maybe.